Hello everybody and welcome back. Today's video is going to be about the setup on my HB Racing D418 four-wheel drive Mod Buggy 10th scale. So this is what I feel is the best setup. Similar to my video I did on the D819RS, this is what I feel is the best setup for this car. I've spent a lot of time testing, changing things, and this is what I've come up with. This car is super easy to drive. It's super fast. It's crazy fast, almost too fast. So this is for an average driver. Average to fast driver can drive this thing. This thing can go fast. I think it will work for anybody. I've made several changes, tried this and that, and this is what I've come up with. So I'm going to change this camera around to where you can see the car a little bit better, and we'll go over everything on the setup. Okay, here it is, my D418, the most incredible four-wheel drive mod buggy I've ever driven. It's been very successful. I've won a lot of races with it. As a matter of fact, it's still dirty from I won the Snap Hard race here at the warehouse. Car was incredible to drive, so let's go ahead and get started. So first off, start with the J-Concept silencer body. It's what comes with the kit. Fits great, and this thing lasts forever. I think the way the car's made, it doesn't take a lot of hits, so it's lasted a super long time. I used a practice body for a long time that just painted yellow, and it eventually broke right here at the nose, but still usable. I got a lot of laps on it. So let's go ahead and take it off. Start off, I attach it with Velcro all the way down the sides, all inside the body. That's held up great. Really surprised at how long that lasted actually. Go ahead and say the battery I use is an Ultimate Racing 5800 HV. Incredible battery. It's been really good to me. I use the battery in the most forward location, and that's the way I've always ran it. Now I got my setup sheet as a cheat sheet here because I can't remember all this stuff. So for electronics, I use Maclan. I can't even remember the number of this ESC. They're nicer 10th scale ESC with a 5.5 motor. The gear ratio is 72-17. Been super reliable. Servo I use, the same servo I use in my Nitro and E-Buggy just because I've got extras. It's easier to just keep the same one. I'd rather go down to a lower profile, may do that one day, but it's a SRT 927S. Of course, we got the Sanwa receiver, antennaless receiver. It all cleans up pretty nice. I use the one of the necessities for these cars is the aluminum steering rack. I use the HB Racing one. Works great. I've got 1mm shim, or it's 0.5 millimeter shim. See what it says on there on the sheet. That should be 0.5 millimeter shim there. So, what I'm going to talk about next. Next, let's talk about the shocks and shock position. For the shocks, I use emulsion style shocks. 2x1.6 in the front, 2x1.7 in the rear. The HB pistons. This works fine. For oil, I use 60 in the front and 40 in the rear. Shock position. It's a little strange. HB Racing makes this shock tower, I guess you call it, carbon plate that sticks out to here, and the shock positions go out here. Well, all back they came out with this one that moves the shocks more in position. So before they did that, I saw David Ronafalk do that, and I just tried it. I just had an extra one. I took it and drilled what I thought, just kind of eyeballed what I thought was the best location, and it's been working ever since. It works great. I've tried going back and forth. I love that. It's got a 2mm shim behind it, spacing it forward just a little bit. So it goes in that more inward position, and the shocks go in the most inner position on the arm. What else to say about that? That's about it. And the shock length front is 78.5 millimeter. Shock length in the rear is 91.5 millimeter. So now on the rear, they have the same deal. The shock tower comes out farther out here. I chop that off. I use the third hole, and I chop what I don't use off. Glue all the edges to make it a little stronger. And the holes, a couple of holes I don't use, I feel like I take some carbon dust and some super glue and put down that hole. That helps. Some holes that you don't use, that helps. It makes it a little stronger, and it's been solid ever since. When I first got the car, I broke both of those pretty quick, and I figured I had to do something. So I saw where people were doing that. This has been taking a lot of hits for a couple of years now, and it's been great. So as far as shock position, I got it in a third hole. On the back, on the lower, on the arm, it's on the more outer position. So on the arms, I use the hard arms all the time with the carbon inserts. Even in the winter when it's cold, it hadn't been a problem. The car works great with it. For let's talk about the kick up on the front. I made a video a while back. These screws right here tend to bend, so I'll take that center aluminum piece that goes in there and drill it out, put a 4mm screw in it and make it stronger. So I do that, and it hadn't been a problem since. I use a 3-dot insert on the front, 1 dot in the rear. That makes it 8 degrees of kick up. Works out great. As far as spacers, let's see, I've got a 1mm shim front and rear, so the arm's pretty much square. On the steering knuckle on the end, I have, that's 1.5mm shim on the steering arm, 1mm shim on the inside. Then on the camber link, I have no shims on either one. The caster block is 15 degree. That helps calm the car down just a little bit, similar to what it does on the 8 scale. That was really a big improvement, one of the best things I ever did. Then I've got 2mm shims on top, spacing the caster block up in its most forward position. Standard hubs. I put a drop of glue, CA glue, on the pins to keep them from falling out. That's pretty important. What else can I say about the front end? The sway bar. Sway bar is 1.2 in the front. Oh, and I use universal axles all around. Universal axles is really good on these cars. It's not even on the setup sheet, but that's what I use, and it works great. So there's also a spot on the setup sheet where it's talking about the carbon brace in the center for bracing. There's 2 holes that I leave empty. I've got, of course, the servo hole and the 2 most outer holes with a nut and bolt on it. Gives a little more chassis flex and seems to work out great. So moving on to the rear, I used the HB Racing aluminum hubs. Those are a big improvement for durability and for driving. I use the hub spaced 0.5 millimeter back. I think it's 0.5 millimeter, 1mm. And the hub in its highest location, so in the lower hole. There's 2mm shim on top of the hub on the ball, and 2mm on the inside. Now, when you do these hubs, you have to use a longer camber link and different ends. You get those from HB Racing. I want to say that's 50mm if I remember right. Don't quote me, but I think it's 50mm. 1.4 roll bar. The aluminum pieces for the anti-squat is a 1 dot in the front, 3 dot in the rear. That let's see what that translates to. That translates to 3 degrees toe in. Spacing, there's a 0.5 millimeter shim. Did I say that? Yeah, 0.5 millimeter shim and a 1.5 millimeter shim. That makes it the 3 degrees toe in. The spacing for the arm is 2.5 millimeters in the back, none in the front. Spacing the arms all the way forward. That makes the car really agile, turned really good. The wing is just a standard wing, J Concepts. What else can I talk about? Oh, the diffs. The diffs, I did a lot of testing on the diffs. Everybody uses these crazy diff numbers like 60,000, I see 100,000, a million, some crazy stuff in the center. I didn't like that. I tried really thick diff, 60,000, 100,000. It was terrible. I couldn't drive it. So what I ended up with, I tried several combinations. What I ended up with was 7K in the front, 15K in the center, and 3K in the rear. Now that's more like an 8 scale numbers, but, and I tried. Everybody uses these crazy numbers, and it's almost like they say you have to do that. And I tried. I tried because I thought it was something that I had to do. I was doing wrong. I tried and tried to make it work, and I didn't like it. I put this in it. This was one of the first setups I did was a similar number, and played around. I started playing around with the lower numbers, and it got better and better, and this is what I landed on, and I've left it ever since. This car, all I do is I'll go through it every now and then and just run it, and it's always competitive and always fast. It's super good, super easy to drive. Turns like mad. It's like a Formula One car. It's so fast. And when you first put it on the track with that HB battery, it's stupid fast. I have to be real calm, and you have to drive it a little smoother because it's smaller. For the speed it is, you can't drive it quite like an 8 scale, obviously, but it's crazy fast and crazy good. So on the rear, go back to the rear, the arms are hard arms with carbon inserts, just like in the front. I think I'm running out of things to talk about. The dip, I said the gear was 72-17, which that's, debatable. I could probably back off that just a little, but on the radio settings, I have to keep the EPA up a little bit, because if you have a little short jump, it needs a little extra jolt. So I'll probably run my EPA a little higher on the throttle than I normally would. It works with that setup. So that pretty much covers it. I've got a setup sheet. I'll take a picture of the setup sheet, and it's got a lot of scribble on it. I will try to take a picture of it, post it in the community thing on my page so you can find it, and I'll try to put a link in the description. So that's pretty much it. That's the gist of my D418. If you have any questions, any comments, please let me know. One thing I wanted to add, I may throw this in the video somewhere, put it at the end. I forgot to talk about tires. Here at the warehouse, J Concepts Ellipse is money. I run green compound pretty much all the time, even in the winter, summer. Sometimes I may try blue, but when they're new, they're good. So if the track's just right, I like when they get worn out and turn into slicks. Put some Paragon sauce on them. The car is crazy. This car was super good at the Snap Hard race with these tires. They were slicks. Now, what wheels I use is the associated B44.2 front and rear. The offset, a lot of people say use a TLR for the fronts. I've tried them. There's about a millimeter offset difference, hardly any difference. But the associated feels better to me for whatever reason. So I've tried both ways. I still got some TLRs I use, but the ones made for the associated B44.2 is what I use from J Concepts, and Ellipse is all I ever run here. I do have I've had some dirt webs. They don't turn quite as good on this car, and also use the ellipses when they're new and have tread on them backwards, not their forward position that they show. I like it backwards because the car rotates better. I use some sprinters. Sprinters work pretty good. They work pretty good on an outdoor track. Dirt webs were okay. And one combination I used that I liked pretty good before the ellipses were out was dirt webs on the front and pressure points in the rear. Pressure point is an older two-wheel drive tire that I used back in the day. They're hard to find right now. Sometimes you can get them on a discount. They work really good. So the dirt webs and the pressure points are really good. Dirt webs and ellipses, not so much. The car doesn't rotate quite as good. Dirt webs all around. The car has way more forward bite, but not the rotation of the ellipse. So I like the ellipse better. So that's the tire and wheel combination I like, and I'm sure you'll like it too. So don't be afraid to try this setup. It's great for the average to good driver. If You can back off the power if it's a little too much. You can obviously slow down with your trigger finger a little bit, which is harder to do. Okay, so for just a little bit of bonus, we actually ran four-wheel drive Mod Buggy today. I came in second. Car was a little edgy and hard to drive. I didn't have time. I was running the race, so I didn't have really time to work on the setup and everything. And I'm going to use that as an excuse. But David was flying and had me beat. It was a lot more consistent. I kept making mistakes. So there's the buggy after the race. I'm going to throw in a little bit of bonus footage of POV view during the race. So just get a little bit of snippet, a little add-on to the end here. So make sure you subscribe, like the channel, and hit that notification bell. See you next time.
Yeah, guys. All right, we got 8 minutes of four-wheel Mod Buggy on the tone, lesson 5. And we're off. The hammer makes a oh, and David Taylor and the hammer gets on. Right off the bat. Running out front, and he hits the bike. Now it's back to David Sawyer taking the lead. Lots of changes on the first lap. Danny puts the hammer is putting the pressure on. 1 and 2 up over. Oh, the hammer, he's on the pipe. Oh, David Sawyer gets a jump on. Now let's the hammer get ahead of him. Ron is now past David Sawyer. Oh, and he gets hung onto the pipe. Oh, man. All right, if everybody can settle down. The hammer is taking the lead. Hammer, David Sawyer, on 1, 2, 3. And the leader down on front straight, and number 2 right on the tail. About a minute and a half down, 6.5 to go. Still a lot of paces left. They're all going the same lap. Uh-oh. The line rolls out. Now down 2 cars, and they are duking it out.
Oh no.
Here gets it on the pipe. David Sawyer gets on the pipe. Anyway, there we go. Good sportsmanship. 2 down, 6 to go. 6 to go right now. David Sawyer has the fastest lap of the race by 18.4. Danny is loving the hammer, loving that pipe. Here they go. David Sawyer takes the lead on the hammer mistake. Oh, the hammer cuts it short.
Ah, shit. God, I'm
David Sawyer a nice comfortable lead. $240 down, 5:20 to go.